Welcome back to GrokTALK.
Hawaii style.
Hawaii 5-0 style.
If there's anything left of Hawaii.
After all the hurricanes, yes.
Yes.
Well, hey, that's weather. That happens.
Well, that's all right. Weather, Hawaii, the wolf whistle. You know, I have to love that commercial that Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire did against Dave Booten. It really was just splendiferous. That wolf whistle is just perfect.
Yeah. What do you think,
Susan?
Howling. Do you agree?
I love it.
You know. We'd like to welcome Susan Olson to the program.
Yet another Grokster.
Yet another Grokster.
Political activist.
Yep. Extraordinaire.
Yes.
Working right now to help elect good conservatives in New Hampshire.
Yes, the lady.
Absolutely. I'm taking a break from the phone bank this morning, on behalf of Andrew Hemingway and Jane Cormier.
Okay.
So got a whole crew down here this morning.
Yeah, when we came in, we had lots of stuff with her name on it spread all over our what we thought was our exclusive table. And all of our wires are all over the place. It's like, yow.
There are thousands of pages of things with the words Jane Cormier on the top.
Isn't it fun?
Sorry.
Yeah, I got that beeping in, so just ignore that. It's a busy morning.
It certainly
so
is.
Thanks for having me on. I wish I could be in the studio, but this is almost as good.
You're working. It's good. So, you wrote a really awesome post this week.
Thank you.
And its awesomeness wasn't just in the content and the fact that you caught something that the bureaucrats in Concord thought they had snuck by, and which they kind of had till you caught it. But you did the legwork. You went down and you talked to the right people, and then you reported that. And why don't you give us a synopsis?
Well, as just a little background, you guys already know that I'm a pretty vocal defender of our natural rights of self-defense as codified by the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and Article 2A of the New Hampshire Constitution. And we were witnessing in the last legislature attempts to restrict those rights by adding bits and pieces to background checks. And you know that there's a federal form called 4473 that you have to go when you go to buy a firearm at, say, Riley's, which is one of my favorite sports shops. They have to fill this form out and it asks you a series of questions that are required by federal law to determine whether or not you are what is considered by federal law a prohibited person. For example, you're a convicted felon, or you've renounced your American citizenship, or you've been adjudicated by a court of law as being incapable of managing your affairs as, I think it's a really tacky phrase, but a mental incompetent. So there are a number of questions that you are asked, and if you answer any of them in the affirmative, then most likely you will be denied the right to purchase a firearm. Now, in the state of New Hampshire, it is what's called a point of contact state, where pistols, you can go through the first level here at the Department of Safety for that application, but in order to carry that pistol out of your house, on your person or in your vehicle, and have that firearm loaded, you must be in possession of a pistol/revolver license. It's not a concealed carry permit. It is a license to take a pistol that you own outside of your house. Now, on the Department of Safety website, you can ostensibly download such an application. And there's a brand new one that was put up on their website. It's unclear when, but this particular pistol revolver license application has been modified to include a new question, and this is what sort of cooked my carrots. It included a question, and if I may, let me put on my reading glasses and read it to you. It says, quote, has any state or federal agency or licensing authority ever claimed that you are prohibited by law or regulation from possessing a firearm? There you go. Most people would go, no, which cannot be a correct answer unless you know for certain that every state or federal agency or licensing authority has not made such a claim. Well, that's impossible. So you're going, wait a minute. How can anyone answer this question? Well, you cannot, and by default, you are unable to apply for a pistol or revolver license. It's kind of backdoor gun control. Now, do I think this is nefarious? Do I think this is a coincidence? Do I think this is just, oh golly gee whiz, updating the forms? No. Anyone who is moderately familiar with New Hampshire laws and rules understands a process under which an agency or department must go under RSA 541A, administrative rulemaking. You've all seen pieces of legislation or a bill even that says the commissioner shall make rules. So a law gets passed, gets signed, and then it goes back to the agency or department to make up the rules that allow that law to be implemented. Well, since this was a material change to a department form, the first place I went was the Department of Administrative Rules. Some nice folks over in the State House Annex across from the state capitol, second floor. And I went over there with this form, and I said, hey, guys, I would like to get the rulemaking background on this particular change to the form, because I can't find anything.
Susan,
yeah?
Susan, I have pulled up your post, and if people are watching on the live stream or later on during the recording, I have isolated that question on your blog post, and it will be, it's on right now on the live stream. And
okay.
So people will now know what you're talking about. I got to get that other screen in here.
So please continue, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. So as it would have it, this was this past Monday morning, bright and early, their computer system was down. And the lovely ladies that worked there said, oh, the system's down and we can't really get that for you. And I said, well, maybe we can look around. Well, the head of administrative rulemaking is a fellow named Scott Eaton. He's an attorney. Scott's been there, gosh, I have no idea how long, but if anybody knows what's going on in rulemaking, it's Attorney Scott Eaton. And he was nice enough to come out and visit with me, and I brought this to his attention, and he says, he says, the system were up, I could answer that question for you in a few seconds. Well, systems weren't up. And he says, well, hang on. We looked up the relevant RSA, which is 159, 4 through 6. And he was pulling out some files. Well, as it turns out, there are administrative rulemaking proceedings in their office for the non-resident pistol revolver application. And he's going, well, here's this. I said, no, that's for a non-resident. I said, what I'm concerned about is the resident form. Well, son of a gun, there was nothing he could find anywhere that dealt with the resident application, which means there's been no rulemaking. There's been no submission to administrative rules proposing changes anywhere. He says, again, Susan, if the system were up, I could get on there, I could query it, and I could pull up everything that's happened. He says, but I don't. He said, so if I were you, I would suggest you go over to the Department of Safety, and maybe they can help you out. And I went, that's a good idea. So I get in my little car, and I head on over to off Loudon Road. Is that Loudon Road? Whatever it is. and go on to the main campus of the state offices, and I go to the Department of Safety. And go down to the little desk that says, here's where you get your forms. And I said, hey, can you tell me what happened here? And the lady said, nope, but you can talk to the sergeant. And I said, well, I'd like to talk to the sergeant. Well, the sergeant isn't here, and I'm not sure when he's going to be here. So I said, okay. So I scoot up to the second or third floor, maybe third floor, to the commissioner's office. And I go over and I ring the doorbell, and they were nice enough. I asked to see Commissioner Sweeney, Earl Sweeney, who knows me, and they were nice enough to let me in, and I was advised he had 15 minutes before staff meeting, but he'd sit down and chat with me. So I showed him this, and I said, you know, what, you talking about Willis on this form? And he says, oh, well, you know, states change their forms and this and that. I said, yeah, but this question is unanswerable. And I said, let me tell you, aside from the fact that it's unanswerable, that it will, in fact, put me out of business as a pistol instructor, because I would not be able to have a student applying for a class answer this question. I said, so, you know, if it's your intent to put me out of business, you know, I have a problem with that. But more importantly, no one can honestly answer that question and therefore cannot apply for a license.
Wouldn't it be perjury if they did answer it and they were wrong?
Well, it's unclear, because on the federal form, on the 4473 or previous iterations of the state form, if you lie, then that's a no-no. But this is not a question of lying. This is any state, small s, or federal agency or licensing authority. Is that Hawaii? Is that Kansas? Is that Guam? Or licensing authority? Is this, you know, the plumber's licensing or realtor's licensing? Or there's no definitions to which you can turn to say, oh, okay, it's only these guys. No, it doesn't say that anywhere. So there's no way to answer this question.
And no limiting authority or principle.
And no limiting authority, yeah.
That's
so
fantastic.
He's like, isn't that great? You know, these are some smart guys. And I said, well, gee whiz, Commissioner. I said, you know, this is really problematic. And he says, well, Susan, he says, you know, I think maybe I understand some of your concern here. But let me have your phone number and your email, and I'll look into this, and I'll get back to you this week.
Okay.
Well, guess what, boys?
Didn't get back to you yet?
It didn't get back to me, but apparently it got back to Sam Cohen at Program New Hampshire. Who writes an article? Huh?
You want to hold that thought while we go to a break, and then we can talk about this article, because I think I know where we're going to.
Oh, boy, okie dokie.
Stay there. We'll be right back.
Congress needs to end wasteful government spending, like the $787 billion of taxpayer money thrown away in the 2009 stimulus package. It may not have done you any good, but U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen's business interest made out to the tune of $78,000. No wonder she doesn't want to talk about it whenever the subject pops up. Call Senator Shaheen and tell her you're tired of wasteful government spending.
He tried to make us believe he was a fiscal conservative, but State Senator Dave Booten has been deceiving New Hampshire taxpayers. Like a wolf in sheep's clothing, he claimed to be one of us, pretending to blend in, but all along, voting like a liberal Democrat. He voted to raise your gas tax by another 23%, taking a bigger bite out of our wallets every time we're at the pump. And oh, how he drooled at the opportunity to vote to expand Obamacare, which will result in higher taxes and longer wait times in the emergency room. And now the Senate wants to pass a bill to prevent us from criticizing Senator Booten's vote? Call Senator Booten at 603-203-5391 and tell him that we're on to his wolf in sheep's clothing routine. Tell him to stop pretending to be a fiscal conservative and start voting like one. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
We are back.
We lost our air conditioning.
It's okay. We only have another 40 minutes or so. 45 minutes. So, Susan, Sam Cohn.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that on GrokTALK, brought to you by GrokTALK.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. Please proceed.
Well, I didn't get an answer from, as I call him now, the Earl of Sweeney. But Sam Cohen, who's with Pro-Gun New Hampshire, put something on their website saying, what if, he didn't say this, but the implication was, oh my God, these people are hysterical. Where's their tinfoil hat? Oh my God, there are 2 exclamation points, that we're trying to be screwed out of our rights. And that he was given assurances by the Earl of Sweeney that this is not a problem. There's an adequate space you can attach a piece of paper and say why you answer one way or the other. Well, no. Aside from the fact that the form was constructed and published extra-legally outside of Joe being able to say, oh, golly gee whiz, I can explain this away, and wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I'm an account of the Department of Safety, to say, well, we didn't mean to be imprecise, but come on. So I'm in a bit of a disagreement now with not only the Earl of Sweeney, but Mr. Sam Cohen. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some nice people at Pro-Gun New Hampshire, but as it turns out, the Earl of Sweeney is the senior advisor to Pro-Gun New Hampshire.
And they said incest isn't a good thing.
Well, perhaps.
Here in politics, it's never a good thing.
Well, I went a little ahead of myself for just a moment. After I had visited with the Earl, I went back to Joe Carr immediately and wanted to tell them what I had learned about the form and the fact that I'd been given an assurance by the Earl that he was going to look into this and get back to me. Well, Mr. Eaton was not available. He was already tied up in another meeting, but another attorney there, a very nice man named Michael Morrow, sat with me and said, Safety's been having some problems because one of their attorneys is retired and so on and so forth. And in fact, Scott Eaton called over there just as soon as I left to ask some questions. Now, in this meantime, Mr. Morrow was able to pull together and provide me with the relevant changes to administrative rulemaking that put any and all forms under, jurisdiction is not a good word, but under the 541A rulemaking process. So for at least 2 years, and maybe the memo didn't get to safety, but at least 2 years, all forms have been subject to administrative rulemaking. So I had other things to do and said, well, I'll let you know what I find out from the Earl and so on and so forth. And I went home and did some of my own research online and, in fact, have requested and picking up Monday 20 years of administrative rulemaking history on the non-resident application. So the non-resident application is not as stringent as the resident. So, I understand I was blunt when I was young, and I've tried to overcome a great deal of that. But I may just be confused. I think not. I'm sorry. I'm being a bit facetious.
I don't think you're
but
confused
I'm really distressed about this, and if in fact the Department of Safety just thinks it can change these things and do what they want without having to answer to citizens, something's really wrong.
Well, I think it's just one more example of what we see in D.C. comes back here to Concord, where I've been writing about this more and more. The rule of law is one of the pillars of our representative or constitutional republic, the other one being the right to private property. And without those two pillars, it is hard to have the kind of republic that we are supposed to have, which is to protect our rights and privileges. That is, according to the Declaration of Independence, the purpose of government, not to do anything else. It's not safety and security. It is not to legislate behavior. It is not to tell us how we should live or organize our society. It is to protect liberties. And what we're seeing right now is not just sloppiness by the legislative branch, which we are all aware of, especially that in D.C., which seems to be making itself into having all of the command and performance of the Roman Senate and giving away its turf and constitutional powers. But we see the rise of the progressive administrative state, and I sound like a broken record all the time, every single day and week, but I'm trying to sound the alarm here. And now we're seeing it here in Concord, where basically a regulatory agency that has no other rule-making authority in this matter, just deciding upon itself, like the EPA, like the DOJ, like the Department of Interior, like the DOT in D.C.
Oh, like
every single freaking administrative type deal.
Right here in New Hampshire, the Hassan bureaucrats just tried to propose a real estate transfer tax rule change that they never brought up during the legislative session, that they knew was going to come up for renewal, and they never brought it up. And then they walked in to the committee with this, hey, we just want to change this, and of course it would create a new tax. I mean, I think these things are not just separate incidents.
No, they're not.
But you know what's really, even, when we were fighting all of these bad gun bills in the legislature while it was still going on, in January of this year, as part of my prep for a couple of hearings, I downloaded the state's pistol revolver license application to do a compare and contrast to the federal 4473 for a hearing for House Bill 1589. But the form that was on the Department of Safety website on January 14th of 2014, and I have all this time and date stamped, so, if they think they're going to waffle out of it, they're not. The form that was on their website then was a revision dated January 2011. So all of a sudden, between January and July, because there's another July version wandering around, they make these huge changes. Now, I've gone back and I have copies, scanned electronic copies that I've been able to find of iterations of the resident pistol revolver license going back to 1995. And I have put together a timeline showing how these questions have changed. Back and forth and here and there. And some haven't changed. But I don't know, there's no history of these guys doing anything except pulling it out of their little Smokey Bear hats. And I'm getting tired of it.
And I think you should, because in our self-directed, self-governing society, it is supposed to be our electors that should be making all of these decisions. More and more we see them passing control and power to the administrative branch. I really do believe that if we're going to do this, let's do it the right way and make our House of Representatives and make our state Senate, and ditto down in D.C., make all those hard decisions instead of saying, let's waffle it over and let the administrative branch do this so that we can protect our seats. But it's another thing altogether when the executive branch, Maggie Hassan, or just the long-term bureaucrats say, we don't like the way things are. We don't think that this is good for our citizens, so therefore we shall just take it upon ourselves and do this. This is nuts. This is craziness. This is illegal. But worst of all, Susan and Steve, this is tyranny.
Well, our good friend Ian Underwood said, if the laws don't apply to them, why should they apply to us?
And
the first time I heard that, I went, yikes.
Yeah.
But you know what? Apparently these guys don't think the laws apply to them, and all of a sudden, maybe they've gotten caught, and I have no doubt in my mind that my license plate number is on a Post-it note in every state police car in the state of New Hampshire.
Oh, I'm quite
Okay.
sure that any of us that are deemed to be subversive to the administrative state are probably already. Well, I already know that I'm in a file in the
Yes, you do.
Department of Justice here in New Hampshire. And
Well, I'll tell you what. This, I'm not going to let go on this, and I've been chucked under the chin by a couple of folks and patted on the head and say, "Oh my, I'm sure, this is just an oversight." Well, I'm calling BS. I've kind of had enough, and the Persian and the Spartan conflict, man caused conflict, came up with that great statement. You know what, boys? Come and take it.
yes,
I am not going to let this go.
Well, you shouldn't, because
And-
this clearly
and-
happened in the last 6 months, and somebody
Yeah.
needs to explain it.
yes.
And if the commissioner, if this has happened without Commissioner Bartholm's, or however you pronounce it, knowledge, the fish still rots from the head down.
Well, I think we do need to make more of an issue of it. And this is a perfect example of citizen journalism, that a concerned citizen just caught something, and now, like the pit bull that I know that you are, even though I do call you more of a Southern Texan belle from time to time, with that gleam in your eye when certain subjects come up. This is something that you need to grab a hold of, because it has to stop. And there also has to be a penalty for something like this. We were able, back a couple of years ago, found out that various leftist employees in...
Segment's almost over.
Oh, I'm sorry. But we basically made a rule change that kept government employees from surfing the net when they should be doing their work. Keep at it, Susan. Trust me, you need to make this happen.
Oh, just hide and watch, boys. Hide and watch.
Well, didn't you say that we really should consider how many other forms they may have changed?
Indeed.
Yeah, well, that's something everybody else out there needs to listen to. If you've got forms that you've had to fill out in the past, whether you were a business owner or whether you had to get certified for something or get a license to do this or that, go check the new form and see if there have been changes. Because
And if they need help, call me.
okie dokie, there you go. What is going on? Something's launching in the background here. All right, thanks so much, Susan, for taking time. Good luck with the phone banking, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Bye.
see ya.
Take care.
All right, that was segment 3. Segment 4 is us, so live with it. This is GrokTALK. We will be back in just a few minutes.
New Hampshire is famous for scenic drives, but they're tough to enjoy when you're on your way to the doctor.
Grok TV.